All right, we are live. We are on with the filmmakers behind the masterpiece horror feature that you just saw, Making Monsters. If any of you viewers out there have seen our previous festivals, you might be familiar with Cookie and Latch, which both won Audience Choice Awards the years that they played. So welcome and thank you for being with us. We've got Jarrett Siddle.
Hi.
We have Dale Andrews.
Hi.
Tim Loden. Alana Elmer.
Hello.
Justin Harding.
Hello.
And we've got Jonathan Craig.
Nice.
On location.
On location. So you filmed, so Jonathan, that is your house, and you all invaded his space for how many days while you shot the film in his house?
The shoot was how many days, John? It was supposed to be 10 days, then it turned into 12, and I think it ended up being about 14 or 15 days.
16 or something like that. There's like 4 days of reshoot.
Yeah. So it was just over a couple of weeks. We did two shooting blocks. Yeah, and we all moved up there and rented an Airbnb next door. So John lives in that location. So the church in the movie is John's home, where you can see he's in now.
Yeah. It's all pretty much the same.
Is the exterior also that location?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we shot the whole thing up in John's home, rented a Airbnb next door for the crew, and we kind of split the crew up. So half the people stayed in John's place and half across the street. And we lived up there in the middle of February, end of February, for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was a cold that took over the place, but luckily we had like a small tight crew. Everybody was so amazing. Tim was making us warm sandwiches out in the field. was naked running around, and I was looking up his ass crack for hours. But it was really good. It really had that nice feel. Dale was my psychologist when I went across to the neighbors and was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy!" But it was a great experience, that's for sure.
Let's see. I'm going to be looking over here sometimes because I'm keeping an eye on the chat window for viewers to type their questions in. And Bryce Morella says, "Wonderful job, guys." And yes, we were really looking forward to this when Justin told us that he had a feature coming out. We were like, okay, like we really love his aesthetic and the styling and like just the little weird bits that you put in. So I was really curious to see how that was going to play out in a feature film. And I'm very happy to say that it was beyond my expectation. The first bit, the opening bit, I was like, okay, this is not quite what I was expecting, but I'm on board. And then when you start adding in those little weird supernatural elements, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I was hoping for. So thank you for that.
I'm happy you liked it.
And then is that something that you've kind of developed over time with your films, or is that something that's just always been kind of part of your creative process and kind of subverting expectations?
What's that? The creepy parts?
Yeah. So for example, Cookie is like, you have this cute little girl watching horror movies and like mouthing the words along to it, and then there's this horrible cookie, the clown head cookie jar with the horrible clown. And then Latched, you get all these scenes of a lot of like dancing and doing your choreography in the woods, and then you introduce this like horrible fairy creature. And then in Making Monsters, you have
Jared.
Yeah, so just so you know, Jarrett plays both Cookie and the Latched monster.
Very nice. Wonderful.
Then Jarrett comes along.
We loved all the train spotting and Making Monsters too. We saw the cookie jar and the little fairy guy. And
well, yeah, the whole idea, like in some ways, Making Monsters could have just been called Making Movies. Like it's sort of an homage to so many different films that we love, filmmakers we love. And so even putting our own little Easter eggs in there was part of that. The whole movie is just about the idea of making content that's scary, trying to scare people, trying to create suspense, try to have fun with that. What does that mean? And so all these different ideas went into it. It was really just a celebration of the genre, and like in a way that was supposed to be a bit different, and kind of mixing all the genres together to kind of tell that one story. So I'm happy you guys liked it. And yeah, in that style, I don't know, to me, every film, there's always a seed of inspiration, a spark. And the cookie jar movie, Cookie, it was just that cookie jar. I saw the jar, I was like, that has to be a movie. It was just simple as that. Breast Milk Monster, that was Alana's idea. And it was like, we have to make that, Breast Milk Monster. Making monsters, it was John's church. That church, John sculpts all the monsters, all the sculptures in that church. John makes those. Yeah. And it was John's church and his collection of monsters that inspired the idea. Like, what if the character lived in a place that was a church that had monsters sculpted? I mean, it was just there in front of us. So the inspiration is what leads the sort of narrative.
That's incredible.
It's cool to be like tuned into that, you know, the inputs coming in like that, and then be able to turn that around and actually make that art.
Well, yeah, because we work in television, so we make TV shows and have resources and are able to pull off projects like this pretty quick. So if an idea strikes, usually the crazier the better. It's just like, you know what, let's make it, because we don't really have to ask too many people for permission. We can kind of just do it. And something like this, you know, Alana and I are, you know, we've been together for 20 years. We make multiple movies together. John's an old friend. Jarrett's an old friend. Dale was a teacher of mine in high school. Like, this is a family project. The resources that go in are close-knit resources. So it's feasible, and that's how we're able to pull off these ideas. And the crazier, the better. And that's usually the inspiration. What would nobody else make? Let's make that.
Beautiful. Brian Campbell asks, was there a particular Easter egg in the film that you're really proud of that we might not have noticed?
Oh, that's a good question. Anybody else have a good answer for that? I have to think about it. See, we shot the film 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, the painting isn't here. It was over the door, and when they first came in, and Tim and Alana first came in, standing there, and I'm like, hello, you know, with the flowers and everything. Behind that, there's a painting of me as a little kid with a hula hoop that my dad had painted. And so that's there. So it's like, there's so many Easter eggs. There's so many levels of it, you know, and that the fact that like, it was supposed to be my boyfriend who is the effects artist who made all this stuff, but when really it was actually me in real life that have made all these things over time, and you know, and Justo being able to look at the situation at this church, and we can't like set deck it if it was something else, so he just wrote it right into the script, and that's what made the movie.
Awesome.
Yeah, and also, you know, to add to that, John, in the movie, there's a scene where the characters discover the collection of treasures that were dug up out of the earth. Those are real. John actually digs up all those treasures with a metal detector. So that's just there. We didn't make that up.
It is.
That's so cool.
In its full glory. All my stuff.
It hasn't been touched since we filmed.
No. Well, I've added some stuff. I found a lot of good things since then. Not just sitting around.
So then were you also friends previously with Tim, or did you bring him on just for that role?
No, Tim, we were auditioning actors. We were looking at audition tapes, and Tim's audition just came in, and it was amazing. Like, who's this amazing actor, and where are you from? We're like, how are you? Like, how come we've never met you before? And it turns out Tim's in LA, and they were in Toronto, and just came out to an audition. And Tim's audition came out the very last day. So I had already gone through a bunch of tapes and had a bunch of ideas of who I wanted, and then Tim's audition came in like days late, and it was the last one I saw, and it just changed the entire direction of the story. Because it's like, well, we have to use him.
Yeah, we were debating whether or not to actually watch his thing. Because it's like, oh, he's late, you know. We've already made up our mind on all this stuff. Why would we watch it, right? And then we're like, oh, it's only a couple minutes. Let's watch it. And then we were like, done. Cancel all the callbacks. This is our guy.
I'm so happy you watched it.
We all are too.
Yeah. It's amazing. New to the family.
That's your character really walks a line there between being like pretty obnoxious and being like, there's a moment sort of at the beginning of the film when they're in the car when you're like, okay, he's okay, right? There's a little bit of a turn because I think you realize you've got to have a little sympathy for what's going on here,
Yeah, I think no one would care if I died or not, or they just be wanting me to die as soon as possible. Please kill that fucking guy.
Yeah, like sort of during the opening sequence, there's a, oh my god, what is this guy doing with his wife? Jesus Christ, but it's cool to see that sort of the change in that character from what we kind of superficially see at the very beginning.
Yeah.
How did that figure into the overall storytelling for you guys?
Well, in my mind, that character is sort of exploiting his family, right, for celebrity, which is something like I was seeing a lot of this on YouTube. Families that were exploiting themselves for some sort of weird fame on YouTube. I mean, now it's like TikTok and things have evolved quite a bit, social media. But at the time when I was writing it, was like I was watching videos of people that were exploiting their families. One video in particular of a family that put their child in a four-wheeler and sent him off a ramp. And it's just so dangerous and crazy. Like, why are you doing that? And so the character is supposed to represent, supposed to be that type of person or that type of idea of, what are we willing to sacrifice for some sort of fame? But at some point in the story, he realizes that he was wrong, but it's too late. The character's doomed, that there's a moment where they talk when they do drugs and he's staring at pictures. They have a conversation and he finally realizes, he's been wrong and she's been right. And they have that discussion right before they start kissing. And in that moment, he's actually changed. He actually wants to change the course of their life and the way he acts, but it's past the point of no return. So to me, it's just that character was supposed to be, representative of how obnoxious YouTubers and, social media celebrities can be when trying to reach some sort of fame. Not concerned about the sacrifices or compromises made.
Yeah. There was another film we showed called Witches of Bushwick, which is based on the Witches of Instagram phenomena. And that was sort of, that one was thematically similar. It was sort of poking at people that were sort of doing this as influencers for a living, but aren't really sincere about their craft.
Yeah. I should add to that, the idea in the movie is that they're YouTubers and influencers, but it's very meta. I mean, like Alana and I make movies. So I've made films with Alana and my son, Latched, where I'm doing that. I'm using my family and so it's very meta and I'm putting just that truth into it. Like, this is something like I need to deal with. Like, what am I doing? Why am I using family members and friends? And there is a line there. It's like, okay, there is a question there to think about it. But Making Monsters is very much about that. Making Monsters is about that.
Yeah.
You have to sort of know what you're doing.
The fame monster.
Well, yeah. What are you willing to do, and how dangerous can that be? And I don't know. It's a conversation about that.
We did sort of wonder about that on the back end, because we've seen Alana in both Cookie and Latched. And although this is a side question, I always say Kooky for some reason, but presumably it's just Cookie. Is that the idea?
Well, Kooky, it works both ways.
Okay.
I pronounce it Cookie like a cookie, but Kooky, but it's spelled like that as well. So, yeah, either way it works.
But Alana was a highlight in all three of these films that we've seen of yours. I think I did. Was there another film of yours, the short film that played on Hulu or something?
Yeah,
Carved. A couple years ago. Yeah,
Carved. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really. Was Alana in that? I don't recall.
No.
Okay.
I was.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, John played the farmer.
I was the pumpkin farmer.
Oh, okay.
My hair stayed the same ever since.
I would like to ask about some of the performances, because you guys, it looked to me like you guys went through some pretty grueling days of shooting. For example, when Tim finds Alana out in the snow, naked, standing in front of the empty fire pit, and the day when Alana puts a pitchfork through Jonathan's neck. Can you just talk about those? What it was like to set that up, and like, were you actually freezing your ass out there? They just have a fur coat to throw on you in between takes, or
a blanket?
Yeah, there was a blanket, and there was somebody like would take my slippers, and then they were like, okay, just 10 Mississippis. We promise, Alana, like count to 10, like, and that's it. But we did that like 8 times or something. Anyway, yeah, it was cold, but I did sort of have in the back of my mind, like, it's not Jarrett running naked in a frozen field. I'm not Jarrett running naked in a frozen field, which was somewhat comforting. Sorry, Jarrett.
Yeah, the opening scene with Jarrett was much worse because that was actually our first day shooting on location. We had done one day prior to studio, but that was our first day altogether. And the first day was Jarrett buck naked, sprinting through that field,
and
then being dragged behind.
Yeah, that was 7 hours in the field. But it started off fine, but by the end, the winds were like 65 kilometer gusts, and we're to the point where we couldn't do the drone shots we wanted to do. And they had a tent with a heater in it, like a small ice fishing tent with a heater, and the wind blew over the heater inside, and it lit a bunch of the alcohol for the makeup.
I didn't know that.
Almost burnt our tent down.
oh man,
insane. It was an insane first day and I was so gung-ho at the beginning, and we did the running at the beginning, which was fine because I'm running, so I'm warm, and then the rest of it, which was the majority up into the dragging behind the ATV, which we actually did, it was mostly me just crawling and laying in a field and screaming every now and then. It was an intense day.
I felt bad because I was there in all like leather jacket and this. I'm like, why are you so cold, dude? You got like 3 layers of fucking leather on and a nice warm mask that just warmed my face. And he's there on the ground, like covered in fake blood and grass and stuff. So poor guy.
You could tell when it was a grueling day when I would have the lineup of people that needed to talk to me. Because, like Jonathan was saying, I was like the therapist on set. Because whenever something was going wrong, it was a tough day. I'd be like I'd be there, like I'd be the cheerleader, like, oh no, come on, we can do. And literally, it was this line. So you knew it got tough. And the second week of filming was it was grueling, and a lot of people lined up.
Hey, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. We could have filmed it as it was scripted. In the original script, that scene was supposed to be on a frozen lake in the snow.
Snowmobile rather than an ATV.
And then the snow melted. A rainstorm came end of February, melted all the snow away 2 days or 3 days before filming. So we changed it to be an ATV in a field. But that was supposed to be a frozen landscape.
There were a lot of scenes actually in the film that kind of like changed as we went. Like I remember having conversations, like Tim and I would talk and be like, okay, what are we up to here? Okay. And, in the dinner scene, for example, like really changed. That whole thing like took, I don't know, a whole new direction. And it's one of my favorite scenes in the film, but it really wasn't that in the beginning, like not in the original script.
Yeah, there's a lot of improv. Yeah.
Well, and we found out that we had it all set up for Muscles from Brussels. Oh, yeah. Tim's actually allergic.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
The whole allergic to Bible.
That was real.
Not scripted.
That was real.
That's real. Yeah.
It was that like, morning.
I cannot eat that.
Yeah.
I didn't gonna
Tim,
pretend.
You've had the script for a month. What do you mean you're allergic to bivalves? I can't eat it.
we're in my kitchen, right? And like we're there, and I'm like, and I was hard set, like it had to be real. Muscles. So I was like, give me a minute. I gotta go to the grocery store, find real muscles. Because I have like family friends in Belgium, and it has to be like this. Like
that's why it was in the script.
And that's why it's in the script. And then Tim was like, oh yeah, just so you know, I'm allergic to mussels. And we're like, oh, okay. And then Justin starts laughing. He's like, perfect. He's like, you can be all mad about it.
You know what else was improv? That was like the best moment is the vent in the floor. So that wasn't in the script. We while we were shooting, we saw there's a vent in John's bedroom that goes into the kitchen. Can you show us?
John's doing the tour.
And this is the first Q&A we've had where the location has been an on-demand walkthrough space.
Yeah.
So I still have the original script. I had to go like, and then I'm like, because we just quickly wrote it, and I just kept it stuck up on the ceiling there. Yeah, it's true. It's like the first time, like you know, it's like live on set, and as nothing's really changed in this place, you know.
So funny. I never would have been able to write that. Like that's too funny.
There's a question. There's a question in the chat about the performances, and Sandra Elliott says the performances were incredible. How did you get into such extreme mindsets?
I mean, going back to what we just talked about, it wasn't too hard to be terrified and freaked out and stuff when you're freezing cold and covered in blood and actual scratches from bramble and stuff. So it was also, I think it was really cold. And so I know like the house was really cold too. So
it always is.
Yeah. So like some of it was like method without meaning to be method.
Accidental method.
Yeah.
That's true. And seeing Jonathan walk around in that outfit, that's really creepy. Like every time you see it, it's a little creepy, but you just pop out of nowhere with that mask on and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
A little too close, so you back the fuck away from me, dude.
Yeah. And we've always sort of been sequenced too. So it sort of played out as the movie played out. And
right.
You know, luckily with Alana and Tim, you know, I've been in a couple things but never had really lines and stuff. But having them to play off, it was really quite an experience because, you know, we'd talk about the scene and just we're so involved in it, and then it would just sort of play out, and then we'd see where that's taking us, and that would lead us to another scene, and then we could report back to the scene before. And you know, but honestly with, you know, Alana and Tim, it was really that's what got me through it. And there was moments, and I know Alana can tap on this, but like when we're in the basement, like I've known Alana a long time and I love her to death, and I'm holding a gun to her head and I'm doing some really creepy ass things, and like I'll be holding it and then she's crying with real tears, and I'll be like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then like, okay, we gotta like hold for a second. I'd be like, I fucking love you, Alana. I'm so sorry. And Tim it was so real in it. Like I was looking at these people, and like, because I can see behind, there's not like anything else. So it's like I'm in my weird basement, like holding these people captive for real, and I'm like, whoa, it's freaky.
Yeah, he in between takes, I would look in the mask and like he was crying, you were crying. It was very for me, I think it was because it was shot in sequence. It was, I don't know, and the days were long, like we had kind of like compacted everything, that it was like, okay, I'm just gonna commit to being like miserable and like scared and like kind of shaking like the majority of the times, like throughout the day, because I was in most of the shots. I don't think there was like a ton of time that I wasn't like around, at least like on set. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of always just like shaking and like thinking like awful things. Like I remember Bruner telling some of the other, like Rob Bruner telling some of the other crew members that he's like, I can't even like be around Alana right now. Like she's freaking me out. Like somebody else has to go talk to her. Like, is she actually okay? Like, are we, you know, even Justin, like we wouldn't really like talk that much because I just couldn't like not, I don't know, because it was so condensed, right? You're like, if I break this, like how do you keep like it would almost be more exhausting to like keep trying to like work up to something. So it was just like I was just always crying and shaking like, for the most part. I'd start the day okay, like Tim and I would be like laughing, like going over like whatever, and then John would like do my makeup and it would be sweet, and then it would just be like, you know. But yeah.
Which
hard.
is funny because it's like all winter I'm crying and shaking in here because it's so freezing cold. And then you get a brief moment where you can open the windows, and then it gets too hot, so you want to keep the air conditioning. You're gonna say
what was the split? So for your shooting schedule, what was the split of time? Like, how much of it was nice sitting by the fire, doing drugs and eating food and drinking wine, and how much of it was just being naked and afraid and cold? Like for you guys, like, was it mostly naked and afraid and cold?
Jeez. It feels like that second half, that once we got into the basement, it was tough. That basement was a little too real. And it was nuts. That's the hardest thing I've ever shot, ever edited, ever put together. It was it feels like it was mostly cold and scary, but I feel like that was just the second part of it.
Well, we also did all the monster stuff in the second week too.
Oh.
Hi, Bowen.
Oh, look who it is.
Oh my goodness.
He's grown.
Oh yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We woke him up. Sorry, we're laughing too hard.
Yeah, it was a fun shoot though. I mean, we've all worked together. Like the crews work together a lot on TV shows. Like we traveled the world on different reality shows. We work in documentary and non-scripted shows. So the crew is very tight and has a lot of experience. And a lot of us went to high school together, old friends. So, and John and I are such close friends. We're shooting in his home. So the shoot was really fun. But then there was like these moments in the basement, other moments that were like very intense. And so I'd say it was a 50-50 split of like fun, laughing by the fire on drugs, and 50 nightmare basement torture chamber.
Somebody in our audience asked if how much. So for Tim and Alana, like how much footage, or did you already do this? How much footage did you shoot for those opening prank sequences, like the show? How much of that was there to do?
We did I think two full days. And do you remember, Alana, the prank footage? Tim, do you guys remember? I think it was 2 days, and we had a couple of GoPros and a couple other cameras, and we just I went and rented a whole bunch of costumes from this costume store, a bunch of different masks, and we went to my sister's, and then to our. Actually, yeah, that's true. So all the interior pranks were done in the same house that the Cookie film was shot in. Oh, because that's my sister's house. So we, so not that much. I mean, out of a 16-day shoot, I think 2 days were dedicated to the pranks.
Yeah, 2 days. I think you're right.
Yeah, 2 days to pranks, and then 14 days to the principal photography.
That's still a pretty solid amount, though, to get that feeling that this is an ongoing project that they have.
Yeah, it was. We just there's a lot of just playing around, you know. Like we just grabbed the cameras, grabbed the costumes, and just kind of. It was actually really fun because there were only like 3 or 4 of us doing it. We just kind of walk around and like, oh, let's try this, let's try that. Yeah, and I thought we actually didn't need as much as I thought. You know, we only needed a couple shots of that because the story, that whole thing is just a MacGuffin. I mean, the whole idea of this prank channel is just setting up a theme. It's funny because then you think the whole movie is designed to mislead you, and the whole idea is like, oh, it's this prank movie. It's not, because after the opening credits, there's no pranks. The only person that gets pranked in the whole movie is Tim, the prankster, by the doctor, and like the rest of it is just, the whole thing's a MacGuffin. So we only needed a couple of moments to sell the idea and to set up a theme, and then mislead everybody and lead them into the nightmare that it really is.
Yeah, we spent a fair amount of time, I mean, as designed, a fair amount of time while watching it the first time, going like, is he doing this? Is Tim doing this to her?
Yeah,
like, what's going on? But things get so sinister at some point. You're like, I don't think this is.
It doesn't matter. Like, the whodunit, or like, the whodunit goes away, and then it becomes a why done it. Like, why is this happening? That was by design. There's no big moment. There's no big reveal. Even John's character, we know he's behind that mask. You know, we're not even trying to pretend it's someone else. Like, you just know it. It's not about that. Maybe it would have been better if it was. I don't know. But the idea was always from the beginning. There's no big twist there. it's a real different type of storytelling that we just wanted to try. It's in some ways it's very experimental. You know, it really was, and we had the freedom to do something like that. So it's cool.
It really is unlike any other film that we're showing. And somebody very early on in our chat said that they've seen everything so far we've shown, and that's 12 hours of films or something like that, and that yours is by far their favorite.
Cool.
Oh, that's so nice.
Another Chris Stewart just said here, the character development in this film is off the charts. Both Tim and Alana are completely opposite in the end, or completely opposite at the end than they were in the beginning. To see it play out that way, you filmed it, was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear, because that was very intentional too. Like your character was very much from the beginning, just kind of like, it's like, oh, is this her movie or is it his movie? Is it Tim's movie? But it's not even like whose movie is it? It's like it's about these two characters learning a lesson the hard way and changing. And you become so bad.
It was refreshing to see the relationship between like Chris and Allison evolving on screen, because a lot of times you get kind of introduction to a character in a horror movie and their weakness or foibles are why things go wrong. And so it was very refreshing to see like kind of a real relationship and how that developed.
They weren't making any critical mistakes. You know, there's a point when they realize everything is fucked up, they start doing everything right. It doesn't really matter.
It's too late. They've gone down the wrong path. They both just were blind to a harsh reality, and it's too late. And that's the idea. But they both realize, oh shit, we should do better. But you know what? The damage is done.
Too late.
Yeah.
Now, with so much in the film that's like we were talking to Greg Hale just a few days ago, the producer of Blair Witch Project, and he was talking about their original idea, sort of like originally was going to be they were going to film it on 16 millimeter, and that it was going to be a real film production, and at some point they looked at the budget and they're like, no, we gotta the actors have to film this movie, and that's kind of how the whole thing started. So much of this we see like from the point of like a GoPro, how, and that really made us wonder, like, how are you pulling off these sort of stunt moments? Like when Alana is riding the ATV with the camera, is that just happening, or is it on a trailer, or how?
Alana does all of her own stunts. So everything you're seeing Alana's doing, she's riding that ATV. We have a really good grip. Our grip does the Amazing Race and travels the world, like rigging stuff on the fly. So he rigged up a red camera onto the ATV, and Alana's actually just doing it for real. We just sent her off with a walkie-talkie and some minimal direction and let it rip.
Incredible.
Actually, it sucks that Rob's not here, because Rob, the co-director, my partner, Alana's doing all the shots you see with the cameras on Alana. She's driving it, but there's one shot where she gets shot with the bullet and she flies off. That's actually Rob wearing a wig, and because he did the stunt, because he had to throw himself off this ATV, and he like his first take rolled the ATV and almost dislocated his shoulder. It was like, dude, okay, we didn't want it to look real, but like, oh, don't hurt yourself. So some of the stunts were done that way. Jarrett created his own sled for his back with fiberglass to be dragged with the ATV. So you see him being dragged. He's actually riding a sled that Jarrett made. He made his own sled.
Well, it was we had
Alan.
Alan casted my back and everything, and then when we got it, it's always like great in theory, and then you get it and you're like, well, this doesn't work. So it was a lot of me late at night with a saw cutting it smaller and smaller to get it to the point, and then figuring out how are we actually going to attach this to. So I think we had John. I think he was helping me with a rope, and I would lay down on it, and he'd drag me around on, and we're like,
it's like 4 in the morning after 20 hours shooting. It's like, oh fuck, we got to get the sled going.
First day on location, so we got to location after shooting in the studio, and then John and I like, well, let's go figure this sled out now that we're here.
But there's another scene where Tim breaks through the door with the axe. Those doors, Jarrett made those doors. So Jarrett made prop doors that Tim would break through. Alana was dragged by a rope, and you see in the shot in the film, she's being dragged by an invisible force. She's being dragged by a bunch of dudes with a rope, but then we just digitally removed the rope. She's wearing like magazines duct taped to her, which didn't work that well. That could have been done better. I'll admit it.
Ripped her whole back up.
It was ripped, like shredded my back.
Shredded.
It was shredded, like
I don't know.
raw. No, it wasn't amazing. But we ended up making like a corset of magazines to like try to like help it. But then the magazines, because I was like, you know, sweating and I'm like screaming and all this stuff, they like kind of got stuck like in my like raw backness. So then it's like peeling off. Like Christina and like John too was like peeling them off my wound. I think I got somebody to tape it. I just wanted proof.
Christina was good for that.
I have that on my phone.
Okay, Dale has it. Yeah, very good.
And the pitchfork gag was done with just some movie magic. It was done in reverse. So Alana holds the pitchfork and she quickly removes it. And the forks were put inside of a fake skin. So we had an amazing makeup artist. John's a makeup artist, and then we had this other guy, Alan, who did a lot of the special.
Alan Cook, who's a great makeup artist, and cast my head, did a full skin, and then basically then painted it right back on. And a real small interjection story is like he had done the whole makeup up, and we had bladders in it, so we had tubes coming up, so when the pitchfork comes out, blood can come out, right? But Alan's so good, we were up in my room doing the whole makeup, and then Justo comes in and goes, "Are you guys gonna start? Like, we got to shoot the scene," and like, and then Alan's like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, Justo, it's on." He's like, "What?" I was like, "No, the full silicone appliance was already on, but you couldn't see it because the edges were so good because he was such a mastermind at it." So that's how that went.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And at the end, where Alana strangles Jonathan, she just actually.
Oh, there's my back. There it is.
Oh,
yeah, that's the back.
Look at that, eh? And that tramp stamp. Jeez.
Look at that tramp stamp.
Oh man.
Yeah. See, this is like taping her up with the magazines.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
I feel bad because I think when the first time you did it when you got your back scratched, I think is when I dragged you.
Oh, I don't know.
That angle, I don't
You did it.
That's okay. I almost killed John in that last scene. Justin was like, you know, the sun's going down. It's like, okay, we gotta make this happen, guys. Like, I need you to commit. You guys got this in you, all this stuff.
Not sure that's what I was saying.
Commit. Look me in the eyes. Tell me you're gonna deliver. So we just kind of went for it, and we didn't really have like the best strategy.
Alana actually strangled John for real, and then you guys told me like you're strangling for real. I said no, you're actually strangling him. Don't actually strangle John.
Well, I didn't know. Like John was like, you know, give it to me. We got to do this for Justin.
Okay.
I hope it was this last scene.
From my side, it was like, you know, Alana is like this big on my back. I'm like, it's fine. You know, she's gonna put the rope. I could stand up, but we kind of have to make it look real. But I had blown my ankle out so bad, like I had a pretty bad sprained ankle for the first whole thing of the shooting. But what I didn't know is she has my neck, and we're in like a lumpy like farmer's field. When she's pulling back, I'm going like this, and I've got like these shoes on. By the way, my Chucky socks. Anyway, I'm going backwards, and I can't stand up. And the cameras are just rolling, and Jessica's like, perfect. And I now can't, and I start panicking, and it's got my Adam's apples shoved up. And I started panicking. So those scenes where my head is like a tomato was really that much blood in my face.
Wow.
And I blew my voice out for a good like 6 months.
Yeah, John and I bonded for life in that field. I think we were like, yeah.
Once you have to kill somebody, I guess that.
I know.
We died together.
When you're taking a man's life, it's a forever bond, you know.
That's right.
Well, I was shocked to learn you guys were actually doing that because the idea was that the actor was supposed to act like he was being strangled, not actually.
We dedicated to it.
This is
I can be better.
It was my fault. It was my fault. I said pull. That was that. I said don't worry about it. Roll. But I just didn't think about all those extra little things that maybe could kill me.
It's hard to say stop once that whole procedure has begun.
That's right. Yeah. And I wasn't like calm enough to be like, cut camera. I was just like, whoa!
And I'm like,
Yeah.
And Justin's like, this is great. This is great.
You look so real. You guys are amazing actors. I was so impressed with your acting.
that's what I brought you on.
Like, wow, that looked really good.
It's just like a weird snuff film, kind of.
Authentic.
So
No, everyone did-
you all have worked together before, but Tim, have you done horror movies before, or was this your first one?
This was my first horror movie. Yeah. First experience. It's great.
Was it good?
I loved it.
Was
I
it?
loved it. I mean, everyone was so welcoming and like warm. It didn't feel like a horror film when you're shooting it. It just felt like a fun project that people like really passionate about what they're doing. And I was like, yeah, I'm on board with that. It'd be a lot of fun. And it was awesome. Even when I died, it was so fun. They're like, you're gonna die. We're gonna shove. Here's what we're gonna do. Justin's like, you definitely have to die, and it's gonna be a crowbar. We're gonna shove a crowbar through your head. And I was like, that's amazing. That's the best. The best. Yeah,
I know we
it's
talked
great.
about it. You're like, does my character have to die? I'm like, yes. This character has to. He has to die. It has to end.
I remember calling my parents and telling them the storyline briefly. My dad was like, no. You should convince him you don't have to die. You should not die. I was like, no, I think I have to die.
The character had to die. Oh, John, is that the actual prop?
Yeah.
Is it?
That's the actual prop crowbar?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just boom.
So good.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Rhonda Morley Costin did that. Casted a real crowbar. So my favorite prank up here is I have the real crowbar. So I hand it to my dad. I'm like, do you feel the weight of that? He's like, yeah, okay. I'm like, cool, eh? He's like, whatever. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, Dad! And I whip this out. He's like, ah! Anyway.
It's, you might not be okay.
Yeah. So you really drew on your own personality and experience for your character.
Sure.
Character's love of torture.
Yes.
Yeah, that crowbar. I don't know where that idea came from. I think I was walking through like a hardware store and I was just passing the crowbars thinking like, oh, those are so violent.
Yeah.
Just holding it in the store like, this is it.
I was
I've never
talking
seen
to you
that
on the
before.
phone just though. You called me. You're like, I'm in a hardware store and I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, I found this crowbar and this is really like a heavy item. And I think that like, because I think originally I was like, we got to stomp his face or something like.
Right.
It would be
Yeah,
like
different
all this
ideas,
money.
yeah.
Yeah. And then when you brought it, it was like, all right. It was like, yeah, it was this and this that got Tim.
Yeah.
Which is
The
about-
knife.
Yeah.
So, and I have a follow-up question for Tim. What is it that attracted you to this project? Like, was there a casting call that you saw and then you liked the sounds of it? And
Well, yeah, there was a casting notice where my agent sent me the thing, and I was like, oh, I got to put this on tape by Monday, and or something like that. And I was like, fuck, I just couldn't. For whatever reason, couldn't get to it. And so I got it done on Tuesday, and sent it in. And I was like, is that all right? And my agent, he's like, yeah, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. But I was like, will it be fine? Because usually it's not. But I sent it. But I was like, good practice to do, audition. And aside from that, obviously they liked it. But when I was reading the breakdown, I was like, this would be really a cool character to play because, yeah, it's a horror movie, but I felt like he was saying something. Like there was a definite point of view from Chris's character, and I was like, the writing, it seems like it's really, really putting forth this. It's saying something, and I really would like to do this. So I was really into it, and to the point where my my wife's an actor, and so I did the first 3 scenes, whatever, and she watched them. And I was like, it's great, let's send it. And she's like, I tell you guys this. She's like, I think maybe we should work on the 3rd scene just to like fix it a little bit. And I was like, why? She's like, anyway, we did. I'm glad we did, because I think in the end I got to like what it was about, because it was about his love for Allie, and it was it. And that was what the whole story was about. I think overall was that, aside from the murder and mayhem, but which is also what I liked about the movie, was that it wasn't your typical horror movie, and it really had some character development and real life stuff going on. So yeah, so I wanted to do it, aside from it just being a thing that was sent to me from my agent.
Christian Brand.
Christian Brand. Yeah.
So I want to talk about some of the supernatural elements in the film. For example, when Allison gets up in the middle of the night and goes into the bathroom, and there's like a horrible creature sitting there looking at her. Where did these things all come from? Because they.
And is that Jart in the suit? Is he the monster in the film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play the real David, and then David's ghost as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, she sees him kind of in the attic room, or the other room, kind of off in the corner. And I was kind of trying to figure out, is she clairvoyant that no one else is seeing these things, or is it leftover effects of the drugs that she was on? Like, what's happening?
That's the whole idea. Is like, what is it? I mean, in my mind, she comes from a family of clairvoyant, like a clairvoyant kind of lineage, and she has this power, but it's never really been able to access it before. The drugs maybe like opened some sort of gateway or something. And she's in a situation in this church where someone was brutalized, and they've realized there's someone that can help them save their partner. So the ghost is one ghost who is the guy who was killed at the beginning. His arm was cut off, and he's trying to save his partner who's in the basement with this clairvoyant, if he can just break through to her. So she starts to see him a little bit when the drugs are starting, and it's opened up these gateways. And the rest of it is just this supernatural entity trying to get to her, trying to penetrate through her nightmares or get to her in whatever way.
Eventually drags her down.
Yeah. He's trying to get to her. He's trying to like make contact, trying to get her to the basement, trying to show her that they're in danger, trying to get her. So the whole time it's terrifying, because she's being dragged to this basement or lured to this weird basement. But meanwhile, it's to kind of help save somebody, and it's for them to save themselves. So the ghost is just trying to help.
Yeah, that's a really nice moment too. I think when you finally realize it has a goal.
Right.
It's not just trying to scare her or freak her out. It's,
Well, and then when Chris sees this happening out the window, and like we all see from his point of view, like her being dragged, we're like, oh, that was real. That was actually
it's real. That's
moment.
The thing. It's like at that moment, it's like, oh no, this is not in her imagination. There's a thing here, and it's able to grab her. The rules of this movie allows this ghost to move her along. It can connect with her specifically. And she's just learning this for the first time, which is why she's panicking. But the idea that she comes from a clairvoyant family, I thought had been set up quite a bit. So at that point, she'd be like, she's learning her powers for the first time, discovering. Yeah.
Nice.
I really liked how when we realize when watching the film, when there's two things happening at once, that the ghost and then Jonathan's character also sort of bearing down on them. And when you finally realize that they're at opposite ends, that they're competing forces, really opened up this film for me. Like at the point, like, oh, this isn't about a haunting, it's not about a stalker. It's sort of how these things kind of interweave with each other. And really
100%. Yeah. It's a blend of all these different genres and all these different horror tropes and all these different ideas, and like a different type of story that's interweaving them in a new way, which works for some people and doesn't work for other people. But we like it. I think it's really different and interesting, But it's one of those things where some people don't really understand the supernatural element, and some people think you can't have a ghost and a slasher in one movie. Right. I think in this movie, the point of this movie is to include all those different elements and to blend them up and to make a comment about it. You know, so that's what Making Monsters is. Making Monsters is about making scary content, using it, and it's playing with all the tropes.
Yeah.
Good.
You got
Any new questions?
Oh, Brian Campbell at some point said the virtual of the or no,
The virtual tour of the house is even better.
he said if we were watching this in the Hollywood theater, I would expect Jonathan to show up in that costume at any moment, like some kind of William Castle shtick.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time we do it.
Yeah, Jonathan
It
showed
was
up at all
creepy every
different places. He's actually been at many of the festivals, and he's gone in costume. So he's gone in costume. He's met people. He went to Berlin, and he took that with him to Berlin. I don't know how he got the machete into the country, but
I walked around.
We let him in.
Dale and I were at Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh yeah,
we messed around.
Yeah.
No one said shit.
Yeah, we were out on Hollywood Boulevard. I took him out there, gave him a few drinks ahead of time, and we went out and filmed some stuff on Hollywood Boulevard. And we went to out in front of the Chinese theater where all the people are, and people are like taking pictures with him, putting his arms around. They're trying to give him money as well. And we're like, no, this is just he's doing this
like $3 a picture. I'm like, no, you can have your money. And they're like, are you care? I'm like, you haven't even seen the movie. So I just went back into my Spider-Man costume and did the rest of the day.
That's where the real dough's made.
Always take the money.
Elmo and Spider-Man.
So what is next for Making Monsters? Is this going to be released in some sort of home media or streaming thing? Are you looking for a distribution?
We just closed the distribution deal, or we're closing it. It's been closed, right, Dale?
We're just in the process of getting the deliverables and all that sort of stuff, and yeah.
So we have
a few days.
Yeah, we have a distribution deal. I don't think we've even announced this to everyone, but we have a distribution deal with A71. They're going to release it around Halloween. We're talking about doing some sort of theatrical run, like in movie theater or in drive-ins, but it's going to be distributed through A71 around Halloween. We're doing all of our deliverables now. By July 1st, we're submitting all the materials to the distributor, and we're going to probably make a whole new marketing campaign and stuff. So Halloween, it will be like leading up to Halloween, it will be released officially.
That's
awesome.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sorry.
The neighbor's cat just wandered in through our back door.
I was very surprised to see her. Come here, kitty.
Well, that's excellent news. You know, we are lovers of independent film. I can't stand to go high.
Kitty. Hi, kitty.
I really can't even stand to go to a movie theater and see sort of a mainstream horror movie anymore. It doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
Indie horror is a kind of drug, and once your body and brain is used to it, it's hard to go back. And Making Monsters definitely presses all those buttons for me. I think especially by including all of those genres, that you're talking about in one. When we were talking about it to people, without wanting to give it away, we were calling it a supernatural stalker. We said, if Paranormal Activity meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre, things like that.
Yeah.
We were going, no, I don't get you. I don't understand what you're saying. Well, you're just gonna have to watch the movie.
It's different. It's different.
So I'm so glad to hear that you've got some distribution going and that you'll be seeing it, because that's can be hard to come by these days.
Yeah.
Another film we're showing is called Uncle Peckerhead from Matthew John Lawrence. I don't know if you know him or have heard of him.
No.
One of his shorts also played our very first year, called Larry Gone Demon. And his film, just as we were selecting it, got picked up by Dread, Epic Pictures, Dread. So they'll be releasing it at some point soon. So it's good. Cool. Two indie success stories right from our festival.
and that's a whole process. when you
we have more coming. We have more coming for sure. There's a couple brewing that are very interesting. Shorts and features.
Can't wait to see them.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, we when I was up at Justin's cottage a week and a half ago, we put together a whole pitch package for a short that we sat there and did all the design stuff while looking out over the lake and all that. So we've got quite a few little things in development that we're really excited about.
Yeah, we love feature films, but I will always make short films. Always. I love shorts as a format. I love the short 3, 4, 5 minute length even. Some of my shorts have been long. Latch was 17 minutes. Like those are long shorts. Yeah. The older I get, the more I want to make more shorts, shorter, as well as features. But you'll have more coming at you for sure.
Well, there's the author Robert McCammon is a horror author. He had a collection of shorts, and normally he's a novelist. He had a collection of short stories many years ago called Fast Cars, and it was, I think, his only collection of short stories. And he, in his preface to it, he said that he loves the novel form. He loves the long form because it really gives you an opportunity to develop your characters and to tell more complex and meaningful stories. He said that a novel is like a big black shiny limousine. But he said short stories are the fast cars of our imagination. They're 0 to 60, in a second, and they crash into walls, they crash into trees, and they go off of rails. And it gives you an opportunity to go from point A to point B very quickly and sort of get that, get your message through in a way that's really impactful, And I think that's true of short films as well, as they're obviously more constrained than a feature film, but they also make you really economize your message.
You can experiment, and you can experiment with the storytelling. So you can really try something different, and you can fail, and the failure is not gonna be a devastation. So it's fun because if you're not failing and trying stuff, you're not really doing anything. It's pushing boundaries. So I love that format, and I just love the short length as a format as a viewer. I just enjoy it. So and they're easy to produce, much easier after doing a feature. It's like, oh yeah, shorts are we should do more of those. So I just love the format. Now features, we have 2 that we're writing now that are really interesting, really really exciting, and but I'm even more excited about the short that we have coming up because it's just such a interesting. It's such a terrifying idea, and I just can't wait to put this 5-minute nightmare out into the world. It's so fun, and we can just make it, put it out there, and it's not gonna take 3 years to do.
But that let me add a little bit. That's what makes Justin and Rob such great directors and innovators in this way, and what made Making Monsters made is fearlessness, not giving a shit, and just saying, no, let's go. Let's do this. Let's do it right now. And I don't care if it succeeds or it doesn't. I want to do it because I'm passionate about it.
Wow,
and that's what made Making Monsters.
Yeah,
and don't forget, you also need the money to make it.
Well, yeah, we can only do that so many times before we have no more resources.
Come on, Dale. Come on, Dale.
Come on, Dale.
Come on. What's your fucking problems? Make another one.
Write the check.
Come on, yeah. What are you doing? Just sitting around?
I do my share. I do way more than
10 out. Write some checks, dude.
You should be paying him. He's the therapist.
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can take my royalties.
Yeah, the amount of times I had therapy sessions, I could be like doing another film, funding another one by now.
Well, geez, we've kept you guys on for a little over an hour already. Can you believe it's been that long?
No.
Wow. Yeah.
One of you has
3
going.
a.m.
Come
here.
on.
Yeah, 3 a.m. here. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys coming on from so far away. Except Tim, you're in LA. Did you say?
Yeah, West Coast.
Yeah.
He also has a baby.
But my bedtime's like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Thanks for staying up late.
Yeah, thanks for staying up late for us. It's really we're so happy that we were able to get your feature, Justin, in this year. I know because we've been talking about, I think we talked about it last year, right? But it wasn't quite there.
Oh, we were just finishing it, and so it wasn't ready. So yeah, we're very happy. We're very happy to circle back this year for sure.
Yeah, and I really wish we were in the Hollywood Theater doing this, but yeah. Okay. But what we're doing here is really important, I think. You know, we've got tons of fans out there that while they're isolating, and here in Portland, we're basically still isolating.
Like our county's still not technically.
Yeah, our county's not open at all. We're not phase 1 yet.
Like next week.
Oh wow.
So there's a lot of really very happy horror fans in our audience tonight because they were able to see your film, and because we had so many filmmakers that were kind of willing to take this leap with us. And it's weird for us to go from an in-person event, because that's, you know, for us it's getting up on a stage and getting haircuts before the show and you know, all those things, wearing pants, you know, is a thing we do regularly when we're in public, but maybe not now, who knows. But we're so glad you could be part of this with us. And it's a weird year, but we couldn't have asked for better company to have you guys on board. So yeah, thanks so much for being here.
We appreciate that. This actually was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing it, and thanks for the support over the years with the other projects as well. We have your we have a couple trophies from your festival that are in our office that stand on top of our popcorn machine. Nice. That remind us to keep being creative and bringing stuff to the table. So we'll be, like I said, we'll be back with more. We appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.
This was fun.
Thank you, Portland.
Thank you guys.
All right, everybody say goodbye to them.
Everyone in the chat, say bye.
Bye. So I'm gonna slip out to kill the broadcast, and if you guys want to hang out, you can. If not, I'll see you later. And thanks so much for taking part.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
So John, Tim, Jarrett, Dale, Gwen still here?
You lovely boys.